Hey team! Hey gamers, it's Kuro here, back after a long absence, bringing you guys a brand new updated version of my ranged Templar PvP build for the newest ESO update, if you can even call it that. After the subclassing update, I don't know what we're supposed to call anything. A temp blade, whatever, I don't know. Doesn't matter. I'm having a lot of fun in PvP again for the first time in a long time, and I'm absolutely blowing people up. And you can too, if you try out this build. It's got pretty much everything you could want from a solo build or even a small group build. It is a lot of fun in both aspects. I have played this with friends, I've played it alone, and I've gotten some content on both. If you want to see this build in action, I have a video posted already that you can check out if you want to. And I also sometimes will be streaming this game, both here on YouTube and over on Twitch, where I do other things with the boys, having a great time. You're welcome to come and hang out. Aside from that, though, we're going to go ahead and get on into the build video. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe if you like stuff like this and want more of it. Let's go ahead and get into it. Alright, it's been a while since I've done one of these things, so please bear with me if I seem to not have the cadence or the flow that I used to, but we're going to go ahead and dive on into the build, and I feel like the best place for us to start is going to, of course, be by addressing our stats, our race, and our Mundus of choice. So let's go ahead and get on into it. I cannot buff up fully, being that I'm not in combat, but I will do what I can here and show you guys some of the baseline buffs or stats here. We do have about 5,700 weapon and spell damage. That will go up even higher when we are in active combat. I have a screenshot here. 50% roughly critical rate, depending on some of your skill choices, and then about 7,000 pin, not considering major breach, which we will have, so we're going to have roughly 12,000 pin on target, which will be quite nice. When it comes to our defensive stats, we're rocking just under 30,000 physical and spell resistance. You can, of course, swap in some more heavy armor if you want to, which will give you more resistance at the cost of a little bit of damage, so it's really up to you to decide just how tanky you want to be. And then, naturally, without any rallying cry or anything, we're sitting at 2,100 critical resistance. If you are using Rally Cry or you have someone else in your group using Rally Cry, this will go even higher and it'll make you very tanky against all of the high crit rate, crit damage builds out there right now, which this is one of those. When it comes to our sustain, we've got 1,700 Magicka recovery, almost 1,800, and then 17 almost stamina recovery, which is pretty solid. You can of course bump those up with some enchants if you want to. And then when it comes to our stat pools, a little under 26,000 Magicka, 16,000 stamina, and 27.5 thousand maximum health. Now that number may be a bit low for some of you. Feel free to bump that up however you want to, either by subbing in some more heavy armor and just becoming tankier in general, or moving some attribute points around. Again, that is entirely up to your personal taste. I, personally, am a rebel, and I like to live life on the edge. I love edging. I like lower health because it means I have more damage and more sustain with my max resource pool, but if you want to be tankier, by all means, do it. When it comes to my Mundus stone, we are using the Shadow. I'll show you why real quick. I feel like I shouldn't even have to say anything. Look at that. Look at that. Nice. And of course, we are a Khajiit on top of that, so those are both buffing our critical damage. You can, of course, use the Monomyth Mythic, which just came out, if you want to mess with your race, or if you are not a Khajiit already. The race that I would recommend using, if you are going to be using Monomyth, is the Breton, because Breton has very, very good sustain when it comes to Magicka. Almost all of our abilities on this build are Magicka, so that will help you exponentially. And then it also has a very nice spell resistance passive. Most of the really nasty damage abilities being used right now by a lot of the subclassing builds are Magicka based, such as Merciless Resolve, obviously, Beetles, obviously, DKs using a bunch of fire dots. All of those things, Magicka based, so the spell resistance from Breton will help you shrug off a lot of that additional damage. Trust me, it's worth it. But personally, I prefer playing the build this way than I do the monomyth way. I don't even have monomyth, I'm lazy. But I think this is probably how I would continue to play it, even if I did have the monomyth ring. Or necklace? What is it? I don't even know what it is. Fuck it, doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. But you can do either or. Also, if you're using monomyth, feel free to change your Mundus stone out for, I would recommend personally, probably the penetration Mundus just for raw damage, but you could also go spell damage if you wanted to bump up your healing a little bit. Or if you're afraid with your sustain, that'd be a really good place to sub in the Atronach. So it's all up to you. We are also a stage 3 vampire. I do recommend using vampire, however, with the nerf to undeath, whenever that happened, it's not entirely necessary these days because it's not quite as strong as it used to be. So if you want to bump up your sustain by dropping vampire, you could totally do that. Or hell, if you wanted to go a step further, go stage 4 vampire for that invisibility passive. It is quite nice in PvP, I won't lie. And so that's really up to your own discretion. I do have max stacks of Merciless Resolve right now, just to kind of simulate being in combat, you know, because this is one of your buffs that's going to be in and out while you're fighting, and it'll be somewhere between 0 to 300 weapon and spell damage added to your thing, so keep that in mind when you're considering the stats. Now, we're going to move on into ye old sets. Alright, so, moving into our sets, we have a few options. Keep in mind that I'm a solo player, so the sets that I tend to prefer are going to be a little bit better for solo play. However, I know a lot of you are not solo players, so I will give you some options to make this build fit even better into a group as well. Personally, I will show you what I am running as a solo player, which is not bad in a group, mind you. It is very well rounded and will, you know, fill in. It'll be fine no matter what you're doing. However, there are ways you can optimize it for better group play. So, on my front bar, I am using Nightmother's Gaze. I know, it's an old set. A little weird. I'll explain why though. One, it's craftable. So, super easy to obtain. You can customize it, light, medium, heavy, whatever you want to do, however you want to fill out your slots. And that's awesome. Secondly, 2 lines of crit, helping us get up to that 50% crit value we have, and then just a little bit of extra damage. But most importantly, the 5-piece. When you deal critical damage, you apply Major Breach to the enemy, reducing their physical and spell resistance by 5948. I know a lot of you may be thinking, Major Breach is really easy to get from a lot of other sources, but hear me out. This set has 2 things going for it. It is very convenient. Like I already said, it's craftable, so that's convenient. But gameplay-wise, it is also convenient. It gives you pretty much constant breach on your enemies without having to micromanage it at all. You never have to cast a debuff ability on this character. You don't have to. You can just focus on hitting stuff, which is the way I like to play. Oonga boonga, zero thought, just blast them. I love that. Secondly, it gives you more bar space. This frees up a slot on your ability bar for something a little more helpful. Say a buff skill, an extra offensive skill, whatever you want to fill in there, and I will talk about those options later on in. However, since this set is just giving us a readily available debuff that you may just want to slot in, or you have friends that are applying it for you, there are ways to increase the damage ceiling of this build. My go-to would be Order's Wrath. Order's Wrath is really nice because it gives you a metric fuckton of crit rate, which is great. We love crit rate. The higher the better. And then it gives you 8% additional critical damage and healing. The critical healing is not to be slept on. Keep in mind you have several heal over times on this build, and those, when you swap over to your front bar to be offensive, are going to benefit from all of that crit rate and that critical healing, helping you stay in the fight longer. And then, needless to say, the 8% critical damage is just more damage when you stack it on top of breach that you're getting either through putting it on your bar now or through your teammates using it. And those are the 2 sets that I would recommend on this build for different reasons. If you have a damage set that you really like, The odds are it will probably work on this build, so feel free to test it out. However, these are the two that I think fit the setup best. Onto the back bar set. Some of you may groan. I know. You're so sick of this set. Honestly, so am I. But it is just the best choice as a solo player right now, and that's what I am. It's what I am. I have no friends. I play alone. So I'm using Rallying Cry. If you don't know what this set does already, I don't know what rock you've been sleeping under, but let me enlighten you. When you heal, when you critically heal yourself, you are going to gain, you and your teammates are going to gain 1650 critical resistance and 300 weapon and spell damage. Now, this does go down per person of your group, so if you're in bigger groups, it's less effective, and honestly, if you're in smaller groups, the odds of one of your teammates already having this are quite high, so you can replace it. What would I replace it with? There is one set in particular that I think is quite slept on, especially on the Templar, and it is good both for you and for your teammates. And that set is Olorime? Olorimo? I don't know how it's pronounced, but it's this one right here. It's fantastic, and let me tell you why. Number one, it gives you 2 lines of magicka recovery. I know that doesn't sound game-changing, but trust me, that extra sustain is massive, especially when you consider that one of those lines is only active on your back bar, which is where you're really going to want that recovery, because that's going to help you get back your resources while you are on the defense, which means you can heal yourself more, you can save up for a big offense, whatever you need to do. And that alone is very helpful. It also means that you'll have to move around less things on the build in other places to find your sustain. So that is a big benefit. But more importantly is the 5-piece bonus on this set. When you cast an ability that leaves an effect on the ground, which you have several of as a Templar, you will place a circle on the ground, which, when you cast this for yourself, it will be right underneath your feet and it will instantly give it to you. When people step inside that circle, you or your teammates, they will gain Major Courage. Major Courage gives 430 weapon and spell damage. That is a lot of weapon and spell damage. And of course, since it's not Rallying Cry, it'll stack right on top of Rallying Cry. Now this is going to have essentially 100% uptime if you're properly managing your buffs on Templar, and it's going to give you a bunch of damage, it's going to give your friends a bunch of damage, and that recovery is going to help you make sure that you keep your resources high for either healing yourself, dealing damage to the enemy, or even spot healing your friends when they, make a mistake, and that's very helpful. So it is both a support set and a damage set, and I really like that. Moving on now into our 2-piece monster set, you have 3 options. Your 3 options are what I personally call the holy trinity of monster sets. That is Balorg, Bloodspawn, Magma Incarnate. Each one fits a different niche within your build or your group, and I will illuminate all 3 of them for you. Balorg is your big damage set. This is the most efficient and reliable damage monster set in the game. It gives you a line of damage, and then whenever you cast your ultimate, you get a lot of penetration, you get a lot of weapon and spell damage. This is multifaceted. When you use your ultimate on cooldown, basically like the second you get it, it'll give you just a little bit more oomph on that initial hit and help you pressure whoever you're hitting. But if you are fighting, say, a stronger opponent in a 1v1 or something like that, you can save up even more ultimate to get even more damage, giving you a massive boost to your weapon and spell damage and your penetration if you hold on to your ultimate for longer, helping you inch out the win on a tougher opponent. And that is a big part of why the set is so good. And that is Balorg. Moving on now into Bloodspawn, which is the defensive set of the Holy Trinity. Now, obviously, self-explanatory, it gives you a big buff to your armor, but even more importantly is the ultimate generation. Now, that could be either offensive or defensive, but I say it's a defensive set because the faster you get ultimate, the faster you can use your defensive ultimate in a sticky situation. Whether you are using a selfish defensive ultimate or a group defensive ultimate for healing your friends, doesn't matter. The faster you get it, the better you are at staying alive, or you could use that ultimate on offense. That is why it is the best defensive choice. Moving into number 3, Magma Incarnate. Now, Magma Incarnate is what I consider the balanced choice or the support-focused choice. The reason why is, once again, just like Olorime, it gives you additional recovery for your magicka, so you can use a lot more magicka abilities, heals, damage, whatever you want, as well as some additional stamina recovery, which is always nice. And then, on the 2-piece, it gives you access to the buff Minor Courage, which is 215 weapon and spell damage. Now, if you stack that with the Major Courage from before, from the Olorime set, you are now getting 645 weapon and spell damage, not just for yourself, but for your entire group. Well, I think it's up to 4 people total, you and 3 others, but still, if you're in a small group, that's everyone. If you're in a big group, well, it doesn't really matter so much. But in a small group, that will be super, super helpful, and you will be doing a lot for your teammates, and then that also means that it's stacking again right on top of Rallying Cry. You've got Olorime, Rallying Cry, Magma, your whole group is now getting, say, roughly 1,000 extra weapon and spell damage from this, and it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of damage. And then, of course, it also gives you your minor armor buff, but everyone's going to have that naturally from using Vigor, so it's the least important part of this, but the recovery and the additional weapon and spell damage is the big thing, and it's the one that I personally use when I'm playing alone, just because I like the balance. Now, moving on into the rest of the pieces, we have our 1-gallon chain that is part of the trainee set. That's just going to give us a additional big boost to our health, which is nice, making us tankier, a little harder to kill. And then into our mythic. My choice of mythic is the Marken Ring of Majesty. Now, I like the Marken Ring. It's a little bit old school at this point, but I like it because it's pretty well-rounded, it gives us tankiness, and it gives us damage, which also affects our heals. If you have the Monomyth Ring, you can use that instead. I don't know if it's a ring or a necklace, it's one of the two, but you can use that instead. Just make sure to adjust your race and Mundus appropriately, because there is a maximum to crit damage. I think it's like 75%, if I'm not mistaken. Oh my god, my insides. Oh, did you guys hear that? Oh, that's crazy. But yeah, this is my choice. I like the build this way. I like the additional tankiness on both bars, but the major protection on the back bar from Monomyth is quite nice, but the major force from Monomyth is also very nice. The minor berserk you get from it, we actually already have in this build when we're being offensive, so it's not the most important thing, but it is also nice. Okay, and then finally, let's talk real quick about weights, traits. When it comes to our weapons, Lightning Staff Sharpened, best way to get damage for free there, so use Sharpened for sure. Make sure it's Lightning Staff, not Frost, not Fire, Lightning. When it comes to our one-handed, we've got Defending. Our shield is Sturdy. Feel free to make this impenetrable if you don't block that often. When it comes to our armor, I am using 3 light, 3 medium, and 1 heavy. However, again, if you want to be tankier, feel free to start swapping out some of the light and medium for heavy pieces. That's going to give you health and armor, and it will also help you sustain when you do heavy attacks. So there's a lot to be gained from adding additional heavy if you want to, but I like it this way. It's very balanced for damage. That is up to you. And then lastly, we'll talk about our jewelry traits. There's a lot to think about when it comes to jewelry traits. Personally, I have been using 3 infused. This is a really balanced way to do it. It gives you a bunch of weapon and spell damage, but there are 2 other options. If you want the most possible damage, you're going to want to go with Bloodthirsty. This is going to make sure that enemies at low health have 0 way to survive. That's going to help you finish off kills, and will just give you the highest damage ceiling on the setup. Now, my personal choice, when I'm playing alone especially, is to go with Swift. Now you can do 1 Swift, 2 Swift, 3 Swift, Blue Swift, doesn't matter. I personally, if I'm going to go with Swift, I'm going to go all 3 Swift, and I'm just going to gas on some fools. Trust me, hitting that Roadrunner is a lot of fun. If you can put a massive gap between you and the people trying to kill you, you'll stay alive a lot longer, but you are going to lose out on some damage. if you want to add additional sustain to the build, my number one place to recommend doing it would be here on the jewelry enchantments. Just swapping out one of your jewelry for an infused magicka recovery glyph will do wonders for your sustain, so try that before you try anything else when it comes to recovery. And then just fill in with either swift, infused, or bloodthirsty on the other two, with weapon and spell damage enchants, and you'll do fine. And that is it for the enchants. Oh, I guess I have triglyphs on everything, so do that. And a weapon and spell damage enchantments on the staff for additional burst. And that's it for sets. Moving on now into the skills. Alright, so we have relocated to beautiful Artaeum to talk about our skill choices. Now there is a lot of customization that can be done here on the skill choices based on other choices you have made for the build, so I'm going to go ahead and talk about a lot of different things you can use, what's strong in certain situations, why you may want to do certain things, and yeah, we'll just go ahead and get in here. Real quick, I want to talk about the fact that we are subclassing. We have Adric Spear and Restoring Light from Templar. I wanted to keep 2 Templar skill lines because I wanted to still feel like a Templar, but we did of course pick up Assassination from Nightblade because of the really powerful abilities that we get access to and the strong passives from it. I would like to go ahead and talk real quick about the passives because that's very important. For one, the Master Assassin passive just gives us additional critical rate when we're flanking people, which is not uncommon. So that's a free 6.6% crit rate on those enemies. Then we also get access to pressure points, which is going to give us more crit rate depending on how many abilities we have on our bar from this skill tree, which again, just some additional crit rate. That's always nice. And then most importantly is the Hemorrhage passive. This will give us 10% more critical damage, making our crits hit more. And then also, very importantly, whenever we land a critical hit, we are going to get Minor Savagery, which just pumps our critical rate up even higher, giving us that nice, strong 50% rating. Now, I want to talk about the back bar first, because the back bar is going to stay pretty static. That's the word. There's less to customize back here. Number 1, Honor the Dead. This is our burst heal. Makes sense. You know, it's very simple. Big heal. You could use Healing Soul here instead if you have access to scribing. If you are going to use Healing Soul, I recommend going for Healing, Resource Return, and Major Vitality. It's going to make your healing better. It's going to make sure that the ability costs a little bit less, and you also get some additional stamina, which is very helpful. Now, if you don't have access to that, Honor the Dead is fantastic. I don't have access to it, but I think I would still probably use Honor the Dead if I did have access to it, because I like the second portion of the ability, which is a resource return when you cast this ability on someone under 75% health. If you're not spamming this ability, which you shouldn't be, 1 or 2 is all you really need most of the time, then this is going to make sure that you get back a lot of the resources spent on it, almost 60%, so the ability damn near ends up being free. So that's why it's super, super helpful. So either this or Healing Soul in the back bar here, and you're going to be great. Now, then we have Race Against Time. This is a very important ability for the build for 2 reasons. One, it is our movement tool. It gives us speed and immobilization and snare immunity. This will allow us to get up and get the fuck out of there when things start getting squiggly, which is great. Also, 10% critical damage. Again, just making our criticals hit that much harder. Then we do, of course, have Channeled Focus. Beautiful skill here, which gives us our major armor buff, as well as a small heal, bigger heal when you're standing inside of it, and then, of course, a lot of magicka recovery, which is fantastic. We love that. Then we have Extended Ritual. A lot of people that play Templar know what this does. Gets rid of 5 harmful effects, so if someone's got a dot build or just a lot of really nasty debuffs, you can cleanse those right off, and then leaves a big ol' healing circle for you and your teammates to benefit from. And while you're within that circle, you do get to benefit from Templar passives, primarily being Sacred Ground here, which does give you access to minor mending, making your healing better, and increasing the amount of damage you can block by 10% when you're within one of your circles, which is really nice. Really nice little bonus. And lastly, we do of course have Resolving Vigor. Bread and butter PvP heal here. Big heal over time, and an armor buff. Not much else to say about this. When you're taking a lot of damage, I almost always Resolving Vigor first, and then pop an Honor the Dead, because that way, you've got the Resolving Vigor healing you in the background, and you can start to cast an Honor the Dead or two if you're really in trouble. And then for our defensive backbar ultimate, the primary reason I am running Sword and Shield is for this ultimate, Spell Wall. When you cast this, you block every attack, and you bounce back projectiles at the baddies. Why is that great? Because everyone's using projectiles right now. And by everyone, I mean everyone. They are all using Merciless Resolve. They all have spec bows right now. And being able to bounce one of those spec bows right back at someone's forehead is cathartic, especially when it hits for like 12 or 13k and they almost kill themselves. And then you can just finish the job for them. Is that assisted suicide? Maybe, but I don't think it's prosecutable, so it's fine. Now keep in mind, this is going to help you with a lot of different types of enemies. It's going to help you with anybody running Merciless Resolve. It's going to help you with snipers. It's going to help you with Overload Sorks. If you get hit by a bow ultimate, pop one of these things. The guy that's bow ulting you, if he doesn't stop it, he's just going to die. He's going to kill himself. It's hilarious. So love this ultimate. My favorite ultimate in the entire game. And if you're using Balorg, it'll also make sure that whenever you cast this, you get more damage. So you can, use this 7 seconds of defense to go offense with the buffs, and you're good to go. You do a lot more damage. It's great. Yeah, so I wouldn't change this out for anything. However, if you want to be a healer for your group, pretty sure Rite of Passage. Which one is it? Remembrance? Duration? Either of these are solid for helping keep your group alive. So, feel free to use that if you want a healing ultimate for your boys. But I think that Spell Wall is the best defensive ultimate, in my opinion, and highly recommend you use it. Now on to the front bar. This is where a lot of the changes can happen. Number one, I'm using Degeneration. I need this because I do not have access to major sorcery or brutality through anything else, and I don't want to use pots on this build. I want Tri-Potions because I need to sustain my stamina, because it's very important. I don't want to fall over and die. I don't want to not be able to break free or dodge roll or block when I need to, so I'm using Tri-Pots and Degeneration here. It's been nice having a dot on the build as well, for two reasons. One, just some additional pressure, and two, the dot taking on enemies makes sure that we have a lot of consistent uptime with our Night Mother's Gaze set. So that's why we have Degeneration. Then, of course, we have Javelin here. This thing is awesome. It goes through enemies' block and stuns them, knocks them back too. It also goes through armor, and it does more damage depending on how far away you use it from. We're a ranged build, so we're going to be far away pretty often. So this thing can deal quite a lot of damage. I have hit people with almost 9k Javelins before. And when you chunk someone's health that heavily with just your stun, the follow-up is going to hurt real bad. So, yeah, I love this thing. Also, it is a knockback. So if you are in a place with some tricky movement, you can use this to your advantage, knock people off of rocks or bridges or whatever you want, and it can be used in a very utility-heavy way. Now, I have Camouflaged Hunter. Big reason I'm using this is just for the critical rate. This is huge. This is going to help us get up again to that 50% crit rate that I like so much. But big thing about that is that this is the go-to thing to replace if you want to use something else in the build. Either changing a set out and then using Elemental Susceptibility here. Where is it? Here we go. You could use Elemental Susceptibility here in this slot instead. You will lose out on a bunch of crit rate, but the thing is, even if you do that, you're still going to have roughly 40%, and if you change your set to Order's Wrath, you'll make up for most of the crit and still be at a very strong 45-46%, almost unnoticeable. So that is where you're going to slot in your susceptibility if you want to. Or if you don't mind losing out on a bit of that crit rate and keeping your Night Mother's Gaze set on, that's when you can come in here to Assassination and slot in Impale instead. This is a great execute. when enemies are below 25% health, this thing is almost guaranteed to instantly kill them because of how high the multiplier is. So this is where your execute will go as well, if you're okay, again, with sacrificing that crit rate. Keep in mind, since this is in the assassination tree, it does give you another 2.5% crit chance when slotted in. So again, you're not going to lose all of your crit rate, but you're going to lose a big chunk, and you're also going to lose the additional 3% weapon and spell damage from the Fighters Guild passives. So again, this is very playstyle oriented and up to you. Now, in this slot here, we got Merciless Resolve. Everyone's using it right now, so I feel a bit scummy for using it myself, but it fits into the ranged playstyle just so well. And when we're stacking as much critical damage as we are, from both the Templar passives, the Nightblade passives, our Race, our Mundus, our CP, yes we have CP, and of course our Minor Force from Race Against Time, this thing will hit some incredible numbers. I don't have a video, so you're gonna have to trust me, bro. I hit somebody for almost 27k with this thing, and it was glorious. I've hit a lot of people for 12, 13, 14, all the way up to like 20k very frequently, and it is insane. It stacks up to twice now. You can do 2 in a row, and it just deletes things. It's a lot of fun to use. Having a great time with it. And then lastly, I am using Crushing Shock as my spammable. There are several options for spammables on this build. Once again, if you have scribing, you could use the soul ability here and give it a elemental affinity and do damage that way if you so choose. Personally, I wouldn't recommend it. If you're going to use Wield Soul, I'm going to say it's best to use healing version and just keep using Crushing Shock. The reason that I like Crushing Shock so much is because of how much utility it has. I will show you why. Number 1, it does 3 different kinds of damage: Flame, Frost, and Shock, meaning that it has the chance to apply 3 different status effects: Burning for a damage over time, Concussed, which will make your enemies take 5% more damage, or Chilled, which will make your enemies do 5% more damage. And each one of those does more damage when it is applied, and those of course do have a chance to crit to do a lot of damage. If you get a couple of crits on this, some status effects apply, and they crit, you're going to do a ridiculous amount of damage in one Crushing Shock, and you will surprise yourself at just how much it does. Now, on top of that, it also interrupts casting enemies or people rezzing, which is always a blessing. You know, you see a Sork who is trying to recast a pet or cast a Dark Deal, interrupt them real quick, that'll give you an opening to do some damage, or just to help maintain some people that are trying to res their dead friends and keep them from doing that. The more bodies stay dead, the better off you are. That's why I love it. But it also gets to benefit from Destruction Staff passives. Number 1 right here, Destruction Staff abilities ignore almost 3000 armor, so it just gets to punch through more resistances. And number 2, increase your chance to apply status effects in general, which is fantastic. I love that. That is going to be really, really helpful with the 3 different status effects we could apply with this ability. And also, if you happen to kill somebody with it, you get 3600 magic back. Can't say no to that. Now, the big thing here is our ultimate. 3 different choices for you. A lot of the time, I'm just using Incapacitating Strike because it is such a powerful ultimate. It is very strong in melee. It gives us a strong single target attack. When we have a certain amount of ultimate built up, it will deal more damage, I believe, and also stun our enemy. Here we go. If cast with 130 or more ultimate, instead deal additional damage, diseases the enemy, which makes them heal themselves less, and it will be a stun. And also, it will make them take 20% more damage, which is great, especially when we have a few spec bow procs ready to go. So that way, even if they block this ultimate, our follow-up spec bows are going to hit them a lot harder. And it also just gives us an additional 2.5% crit damage for being on the bar. However, if you don't want to use this, I know what you're saying, this is a ranged build. Why are you using a melee ultimate? Really, it's because our range damage with just spec bow, javelin, and Crushing Shock is enough to kill most players that are keeping their distance from us. So we don't need a ranged ultimate a lot of the time, and I like to have the melee ultimate for if anybody gets in my face and thinks that's a good idea. We can stop them in their tracks, lickety fucking split. But sometimes you might want to use Meteor. Meteor's a lot of fun. Pretty self-explanatory. This is a ranged attack, big boy blast, and leaves a big AoE on the ground that deals pretty strong dot damage. Only downside to this is it has a monumental ultimate cost. It is very expensive to use, so you don't get to use it that often. But when you do, you combo this with your Javelin, so they cannot avoid the Meteor, and you will see very impressive results. It's a lot of fun to use. However, the third and final option is, of course, Dawnbreaker of Smiting. This works similarly to Incapacitating Strike, except for it is an AoE, and it is also undodgeable. People can block it, but if they dodge, this will hit them through their dodge, knock them over. It will also stun anybody in the area, which is fantastic because that will give you an opening to do a little bit more damage on whoever it is you're trying to kill at the moment, while everyone else is stunned and cannot defend them or themselves. Also has a very strong dot associated with it, also deals 10% more damage to vampires, also gives you 3% extra weapon damage and spell damage on your front bar. So, all three of these are fantastic offensive choices, just use whatever you think feels right. I honestly swap them all around. But yeah, that is it for the skills. Last thing we really need to talk about is the champion points. Alright, so here we are in the champion points. These are also pretty customizable, but I will show you guys what I like and a few suggestions for mixing it up if you want to. Quick thing, green, this doesn't matter. Just put these wherever you want, it doesn't matter. When it comes to blue though, I want to go ahead and talk about our slottables first. First and foremost, we are using Fighting Finesse, 8% critical damage and critical healing. Just like with Order's Wrath, big bonuses to our crits, both offensively and defensively. This is the only one that I never change, because it is always helpful, no matter what. Now, for offense, we have two. We have Deadly Aim and Master at Arms. This is going to increase all of our damage when it comes to our main attacks, our Javelin, our Spec Bow, and our Crushing Shock. 12% damage right there, pretty huge. Now, I personally am not running any mitigation because I like to run around with the Swift, and honestly, I just like playing Glass Cannon. I find it a lot of fun, but I am using Healing Done, so that way I can get from low health back up to higher health pretty quickly. However, there is one champion point I would like to bring to your attention. I cannot use it yet because I don't have enough CP to get there, but if you progress through Duelist Rebuff, right below that is Riposte. Whenever someone is within melee range of you and you block their attack, your next attack within 5 seconds will deal 33% more damage. I don't know if you guys know math. I barely do. But that is a lot of damage. If there is someone that is up in your grill and you block their attack, your next Spec Bow, 33% more damage. Your next Incap, 33% more damage. Javelin, 33% more damage. Doesn't matter what it is. So this is a very useful CP tool to get rid of overly aggressive melee attackers. If I had the CP to put this in, I would replace my healing CP altogether and stick it right there. I would. Or right here, excuse me. But sadly, I don't quite have enough. Now, if this feels too offensive for you, or you just want a little more survivability, I would recommend you drop both Deadly Aim and Master at Arms and put them into Ironclad, which will reduce direct damage done, which is going to be a lot of the big burst abilities, and then Duelist Rebuff, which is single target attacks. So that's going to be a lot of spammables, a lot of merciless resolves, etc. And then of course, keeping your focused mending for your heals, and then the Fighting Finesse to be a balance between offense and defense for you. Into the red tree, I am personally using Rejuvenation. It's not the most powerful red tree passive, but I like the additional sustain. If you're going to replace anything here, I would replace this. My personal recommendation is actually Juggernaut. I really like Juggernaut because this is going to give you 5% mitigation to all sources of damage, while you have crowd control immunity, which is going to be quite often. People are going to stun you on cooldown. so this is going to be up more often than not. And then moving into here, I am using Pain's Refuge, because this is going to make us tankier depending on how many negative effects we have on us. And then I am using Sustain by Suffering. Again, Sustain is a big thing, and I like to have as much as possible. This way, when we have a negative effect on us, we have a lot more Sustain. And then very important is Celerity. Again, I really like movement speed on this build, so that way we are able to get distance from our enemy and pelt them with ranged attacks. Now, if, again, you are running a higher Sustain setup, say the Olorime and Magma, you don't really need Sustain by Suffering, and I would just throw it into Relentlessness instead. You could also use Relentlessness instead of Juggernaut if you're going to be using that. But the thing the reason is I don't use Relentlessness because that Major Protection, while it is stronger than the 5% from Juggernaut, it only lasts for 3 seconds, while this is going to last for 7 seconds every time you get stunned, and again, it's going to have a very high uptime, so either or works. And that is what I do for red CP, but again, I like to play Glass Cannon, so I've got most of my stuff into Sustain. And that is it for the CP. The last thing we can talk about really quickly is our consumables, because they are kind of important. When it comes to my food of choice, I'm using Orzorga's Smoked Bear Haunch. This gives us a big bunch of health, and then a lot of magicka and stamina recovery. Both are important on this build, so you're going to want both. However, if you cannot afford this food because it is quite pricey, you can use the Jewels of Misrule instead. It's a slightly worse version of the same food. Then, I also make sure to keep some Corrupting Bloody Maras and Purifying Bloody Maras on me. This is just convenience. It lets you manage your vampire stage at will, so just a pro tip. Then of course, you want Tri Potions on you. You can get these with Alliance points now, they're very easy to get a hold of. And there are 2 more potions that I highly recommend. The potion that I use most of all are these Heroism potions. These are very expensive, so if you can't afford them, don't worry about it, just use Tri Potions, but if you can, this gives you magicka and stamina, as well as recovery for them, and minor heroism for the duration of the potion. This is going to help you get your ultimates faster, so that is offensive and defensive. Really, really great to have. Highly recommend these if you can afford it. And lastly, I do recommend having some detection potions on the build, especially if you had to sub out the Camouflage Hunter for something else, because you don't want people running around in stealth, ganking you at will. It's no fun, and these help with that quite a lot. And that is it, guys. That is everything you need to know about my ranged Templar build for this patch. I hope you enjoyed this video. I don't know if I did super great. It's been a long time since I've made one of these, but it was fun getting back in the saddle. And I hope you guys have fun trying out the build if you do. If you liked it, please drop a like, maybe drop a subscription on the channel, and also feel free to come by my Twitch channel where I stream most days. I don't always play ESO, I play a lot of other stuff. I play some FPS games, I play single player games, I play all kinds of things. But sometimes I play ESO as well, so if you want to hang out, please do so. And that is it. That's it from me. I hope you guys have a lovely day. Thank you for watching. Love you guys. Bye.
Take you and get me to the altar, like a fire.